Hey everyone, today we are going to work on creature faces and how to design a compelling looking face for your creature. Now this sample that I have here is something that I drew some time ago, but I intentionally left the entire side of the face and some of the jaw and even some of the teeth unfinished for a reason. That's because I knew that at a later date I was going to come back and have to show aspiring artists how I achieved this texture. And also just to be able to have some reserve when you sketch really opens your design up for interpretation. And that is, if you have a fully polished piece, then there is no interpretation. You're just telling everyone how it is 100%, and it doesn't really leave anything up to the imagination. But when you don't finish a lot of it, there might be scars over there, there might be some more nicks and scratches and battle wounds on your critter. All right, so the first thing that I want to tell you is I'm using a black Prismacolor. All right, so just a standard black Prismacolor, fully sharpened, and then a Faber-Castell, the 9000 series, 4B. So those of you wondering, do you have to draw like this? I'm like, no. You could do this with a number 2 pencil, but I like to use the black Prismacolor with it because it adds a nice coating of wax. Because it's a colored pencil, the wax helps keep the graphite on the paper so it doesn't smudge. I can run my finger across this and nothing happens. See? I don't have to spray fixative or anything. Now over time, when I open and close the sketchbook, yes, it'll smear. But for the most part, it does an okay job. All right, so I want to focus right now on its right tooth. I tried to make it asymmetrical but still similar to this one. I broke the end off right here as if it was in a battle. So I'm going to take the 4B and I'm going to run it very, very lightly back up the tooth. Now when I first drew this, I did put a coating of graphite on there already, but it still wasn't enough. It was just an indication that there is going to be some kind of shading on there at a later time. And now that I did that, I can come back to it and not have to start completely from scratch. Okay, so now I already did it at 2 different passes. That was the 3rd one. And now I'm going to do a 4th one, but I think that's too similar to the other 3. So I'm just going to slightly turn my pencil. And I'm going to work my pencil all the way down. Like so. Still not satisfied, so I'm going to try to hit this completely sideways right there, and then I'm just going to work it all the way up like this. Now I'm going to have to move my pencil over to the left. I don't like doing that. If I have a line of shading and then I stop and I move to the side and do it again, I go over my previous marks and it creates like a canal, or not canal, but a marking like of an overlap. That's okay, we'll just use that to our advantage. We'll make it a texture for the tooth. Alright, so once we have that, just want to make sure, I'm going to move my camera back just a little. Let me adjust this, and then I believe that's okay. So, okay, there we go. Alright. Okay, so what do we do now? Well, I'm going to indicate where the core shadow is, because this is a cone. I mean, look at the tooth. It's a cone. It also resembles the roundness of what would happen for a tube or a cylinder. So let's say the light source is up here, okay, in the upper left. So we're just going to poke it down like that. I'll do a little arrow like that because I know some of the top of the head is maybe out of focus a little bit. I have a centralized focus right here in the middle because that's where all of my details are going to be. I'm going to turn my pencil to the side and I'm going to create a core shadow running up this side of the tooth. So you see here, the teeth themselves, this texture is going to be smooth, and if you study bones and you study what they look like, it's not like dirt or any other, let's see, it's not like the typical organic material that we would normally find on a creature or character that we're designing. It's kind of like designing toenails, sharp claws, horns even. Same kind of surface where it's smooth and you can see some little nooks and crannies in here. We're going to create the core shadow very lightly first. So you can see I'm just being patient with this, and I'm just running it up and down that tooth. And you're going to start to see that line form. It's a really nice looking line. And I put in quite a bit of shading around it. So you saw me do those extra couple passes, but I had some extra passes before. So now wherever I stop shading this core shadow, the other value on the tooth blends in with that, or at least it's starting to. Now what I want to do is I want to take my black Prismacolor. When this goes down, it goes down. So you have to be happy with what you put down with pencil. Okay, now notice how sharp this is. Black Prismacolor tends to lose its sharpness way faster because it's wax. So I'm just going to go in one direction, and I'm going to keep it very, very light. Don't worry if you suddenly start to lose where that core shadow is, because you'll be able to darken it back up. Now you probably don't think that it's doing anything, but in reality, that coating that you put down is a completely different texture than graphite. That's what you have to realize when you put black Prismacolor down. It is a toothier texture. So whenever you put black Prismacolor down, you have to make sure that it's light at first. There we go. Okay, now here's the thing. When I turn it back like this, you'll notice that this tooth right here has a highlight running all the way down to the center. That's because the original graphite that I put down, I didn't push any harder in that area. It's done. Now this is a little darker, so what I could determine now is that maybe the highlight's hitting this tooth more than this, but you're still going to have a highlight right there. So I will not touch this anymore. I'm going to add no more value running across that tooth, because it's not going to be good, because then it's going to ruin everything. I don't want to use my eraser. Okay, I'm going to try hard not to use my eraser. Now I'm going to turn my pencil slightly to the side, and I'm going to go back over that core shadow. I'm going to walk it all the way up very carefully, and you're going to see it get a little darker. Now look how much it's resembling the original core shadow on the other tooth. Now when you create a core shadow, especially on a curved surface, the edge of that shadow is just going to be, it's going to appear to be an abrupt line, but you want to blend in all that value to that line. But you have to put in that line first, because then you have to know how dark to have the other value to blend in with it. So very, very carefully, I'm going to work this black Prismacolor all the way up that core shadow. Now it's darker over here, and it's lighter over here. So I'm thinking, well, we should probably have it be about the same. So I'm just going to push a little harder. And again, when I push harder, I create a new area that I have to blend yet again back into the tooth. This is where patience comes in. Okay, you have to have patience in this sorry, in this kind of sketch. The other technique I like to do, if there's a big area like this and I don't have a lot of width to shade in, I'll just turn my pencil to the side and just, almost like hair, I'll just kind of very lightly walk down a streak of pencil or black Prismacolor. Okay, once I have this, I'm not done yet. The edges still need to be blended in with that tooth, so I'm just going to very lightly, I'm going to start blending in the edge with the rest of the tooth. You have to make sure you keep it light, because if you accidentally press hard, all of a sudden you're going to have this outlying black mark, or dark mark for that matter, and it's not going to look blended anymore. Even little circles, like little ovals that are flattened, that kind of movement. So this is what I mean. When I do little ovals, I don't shade back and forth in a horizontal line. I actually do little ovals like this, and I just overlap them. Because what it does is when I go back over to complete the oval, it fills up the space that I missed on the previous mark. So that's why I'm doing it. Okay, and then once I walk that down, I got to make sure it's at the same angle. I don't remember what I was doing. Okay, this way. There we go. It's still visible right here. That's okay. You don't have to be 100% perfect when blending in this kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to take my graphite and I'm going to go back over the core shadow, the entire thing with the graphite. Very lightly. And I'm going to go past the edges again. So all of this is mixing together to form a really nice coating of value. And I have to be careful because remember, when you put black Prismacolor down, even if it's down on the paper and you start drawing on top of it with graphite, you still can't erase it. Not nearly as well as if you could with just graphite only. So you have to be very careful when you make that choice of putting that black Prismacolor down. If you're confident with your drawing, then you don't really have anything to worry about. But that doesn't suggest that you still shouldn't be careful. Now what I'm doing is I'm holding my pencil as if I'm going to put in details because this allows me to control it. And I'm just going to go to the edge of that core shadow. And I'm going to walk down really, really short, controlled strokes going all the way down in the same direction. Now look what's happening throughout the rest of that tooth. It's blending in nicely with that core shadow. Pretty happy with it. And as I keep going, I want to make sure that all of the value that I'm putting down here follows the contour of the surface. And in this case, it's a tooth. Now, I'm actually more happy with this core shadow than I am with the original one that I did. So, me being, how should I say? Me being a perfectionist, I'm probably going to have to go back over this tooth because now I'm not happy with it. So let me walk some of this down. I say walk it down as if it's actually walking. It's not walking. I just didn't know how else to say it. I put some more, obviously more detail in that tooth, so I need to be careful. This is skinnier at the tip and pointier. This is broken off as if it's like a battle or it bit into something and it chipped its tooth. So maybe that can aid into it looking not symmetrical. There we go. Okay, so the other thing is this is all underlying work. So if you're drawing along with me right now, think about your creature's face and think about just putting the coating of value down first. Don't think about all the intricate details and like the moles and the hair and the wrinkles and everything. No, all of that won't look good unless the value's down first because it doesn't have anything to sit on. It's just sitting on against white paper. So you have to imagine that you are making a pure organic structure, skin, and then you just layer it. Okay. As it like an analogy would be, I guess you can pretend that you are powder printing this or 3D printing this, okay? And it's got to have a surface first. Okay, so once I have that, I'm actually pretty happy. The only thing is the other side of the tooth is also going to get a core shadow. And this is when the tooth is really going to start looking real. This is foundation drawing. The core shadow isn't going to be nearly as pronounced as the one in the inner side of the tooth. Okay, because I still have to add one on this side too. So let me just sketch one in here. Very thin, very skinny. All right, there we go. The reason this side is skinny and this side is thick is because the light is farther over to this side. So more of the shadow is going to be on that side instead of this side of the tooth. That's the only reason. And also, the other thing you have to think about is if the light's over here, then this tooth is going to cast a shadow on that tooth. So in reality, you know, this whole tooth right here, I can even do this and it's not going to mess anything up. That top lip is going to cast a shadow on that tooth too because it's going inside the gum underneath that lip. This is why I left this drawing open for a later drawing because all of this, I mean, heck, I put details in there for the gum. I could just take the black Prismacolor and I can just fill this in even on top of that tooth. You're probably like, no, because you can't erase it. And I'm like, I know. I'm pretty happy with where it is. Now, if it erases the if it takes away the detail, guess what I have to do? I just have to push harder where the detail is, and then it'll show up again. And I'll go over that too on how we can do it. But I think this area up here is a little out of focus because I didn't focus my camera on the top part of the drawing. It's just right in here. All right, so now we got this little core shadow right here. Not bad. I mean, that's my perfectionist talking. I don't care. Because, I mean, I don't care as in, even though the drawing could be finished right now, I don't care. I just want to keep going. I just want to keep going. Okay, stop, Bobby. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the contour of the tooth. And I'm going to start indicating where I want some, not striations, but like cracks in the tooth, maybe to show age. Okay, they're very, very light, so you won't be able to see them right now, but I'm going to show you a trick on how to make these look super real. All right, not many. You want to be scarce with these, because when you put a crack in on this type of material, it's a hard material. It's not going to be brittle and crumble like dirt or like a dried, cracked desert floor or even a rock. When there's wear and tear on enamel, it looks different. Okay, here's a cool thing that you can do on both teeth. The core shadow is running down on this end, and I have cracks and little markings running over the core shadow. Wherever that crack runs over the core shadow, you just darken that part, and then you fade it off into the rest of the tooth. Now watch what happens when you combine several together. You might not have to go that dark. It's going to start looking more real, as if the light is bending around that side and you're just accentuating where that crack is. And the same thing over here. Okay, so if I have a lightened version of that crack running across the tooth, all of a sudden it gets a little darker as it goes across that core shadow. So now it's going to look more real. And then what you can do is you can put maybe some imperfections in that crack, maybe some dark crevices, maybe there's like a really big chip on the tooth right there, and not a lot of light is getting in there, so it could be a little darker. It looks like that thing's about to break off. It's like he better not, or it better not bite into anything hard. Okay, so this one, I could probably do the same thing, but I'll just change up the location, so maybe there's going to be another like big mark up here near the gum line, and there's like a crack in the tooth. Here, perfect example where a crack in the tooth actually would be legitimate. I could just crack it up the side like this. Yeah, like that poor thing. At least it didn't hit the nerve. That would be horrible. Okay, so once we have that's how you could do some really cool tooth textures. I don't want to forget the cast shadow for the tooth. So I'm going to take my black Prismacolor. The reason I'm jumping straight to my black Prismacolor is because I'm pretty confident about where I want to place this cast shadow. So I'm just going to run it across everything that I did. And when you do this, you have to stay out of the mindset like, oh no, I got to go back over an area where I already put detail in. No, that's good, because shadow blankets detail anyway. So you have to give that illusion. You don't want to force details out of shadowed areas when you draw, because you're just like giving an artificial sense of what should be there versus what a human being would actually be seeing. That's the problem that I think that a lot of aspiring artists have, is they tend to bend areas and anatomy because they think it should be seen in an area and it's not. And the same thing with foundation studies and shadows and such. You know, it's like drawing a cube in perspective, and we want to curve all those corners up because we want to see all the corners. There we go. So that'll be a little darker, and I'm just kind of putting this down here like that. I might be spending a lot of time on these teeth. Well, guess why? It's because that's the focal point. It's this mouth area. If I wanted to create a full portrait for this creature, the selling point would be this mouth. So think about a hippo. Their they're known because they're absolutely massive, but those jaws, I mean, it can crush pumpkins and watermelons, and you can bite wildlife in half that weigh as much as humans. It's crazy. Okay, so this is a very, very strong mouth, and I wanted to give that illusion. So now I'm just kind of working back on other areas of the teeth. And some other texturing techniques that you can do with the teeth. If your creature has a bunch of jagged teeth coming out of the mouth, when it comes to animals and something that you're making up, it's usually not just the tooth enamel or the, like whatever the tooth is made of, and then gum line, and that's it. There's usually either plaque, there's crustiness. Like, I know it's kind of gross to talk about, but I can shake my pencil up here near the gum line. Probably like, what are you doing? Let me explain. I can shake my pencil up here and give this really strange, almost layer of like skin. Okay, and it's cracked, and it looks kind of funky. Yes, it does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this value in the gums. I'm just going to put another coating of value right there in the gums. So that's going to be the darkest point. Okay, and now I have these two split areas. I have this tooth, which is pretty light because the light is hitting it. And then I have this weird skin area. Well, I want a 1, 2, 3 punch with this. All right, 1 being the gums in shadow that are the darkest. The number 2 is the skin. So the skin is slightly darker, or whatever that coating is over the tooth. It could be plaque, it could be like a newer tooth or an older tooth that used to be there. And then the tooth itself is 3, and that is the lightest part. So what I'm going to do is, now I know the darkness, or now I know the tone of all 3 of these. I'm just going to darken the skin a little bit. If you're lost and you're getting frustrated with your drawing, please know that it just takes time, it just takes practice. Just learn how to layer all these. So now look what's happening. You can get a nice 1, 2, 3 punch. Dark, medium, light. And to accentuate that darkness even more, I'm going to take the black Prismacolor. I'm going to go inside here where the least amount of light is touching within that gum line. Okay, let me make sure that you can see this. I'm going to turn it to the side. Okay, see that gum line right in there. Now I can pick some little areas within the huge teeth in the front to put a jet black color in there. And you want to reserve places like this with the black Prismacolor and areas where you know that the least amount of light is getting to. So I filled this creature's throat, back where the tonsils would exist or whatever, with almost black. There is some value inside there. You could probably see some different shades, because nothing is ever truly pure black. You have to remember that. But there are places that are pretty close. Like if, when you're doing your foundational drawing training and you see contact shadows of like cubes, cones, cylinders, and spheres. Yeah, those types of areas, not a lot of light's getting underneath there. If you look underneath your refrigerator, your stove, appliances, not a lot of light. It's kind of the same thing. Okay, so once I have this, there's going to be a little lip. There's going to be, a lip, actually. What the heck am I talking about? There's a lip right there on the top. Now, I don't want to go into a ton of detail on the lip. It's more about those teeth and having them be a selling point. The other thing is down here on the bottom jaw. So if you want to make your creature's faces believable, and showing the teeth and showing the gum line is definitely one way to do it. You have to be careful about how you show teeth actually growing out of the gums. It's easy to just draw the same exact size tooth, or not even giving it a root system. I've stated this in a couple other lessons from last year, I believe, where I go over how to do sharp teeth and teeth that are growing out of the gum line. These things need structure. Okay, this is a tooth. This is the gum line. What is that tooth actually sitting in? Okay, there's a root system that's built into the creature's jaw. Well, you have to indicate that jaw. You have to start building up these structures, and the way to do that is with value. Now, there's not a lot of detail around here, so let's work on that next. This is pretty blank. I've very, very lightly indicated where the lip could be, so I'm just going to kind of finish it off here. Notice how gestural I'm making these lines. It doesn't really matter about detail at this point. Just make sure that it is light. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to go over the entire area to give it a nice coating of value. Those of you that are just catching my channel for the first time now, I want to welcome you. This is how I teach my shading techniques. You know, if you layer in a minimum of 3 different directions, you can alter these directions slightly and make them more drastic. A minimum of 3 will give you a good start. And don't be afraid to physically turn your sketchbook like this. And then go back over the same area, but don't press as hard. Always remember that. Do not press as hard. Or, I'm sorry, don't press harder. Just make sure that it's the same. There we go. Now, I don't want you to force yourself to work over a huge area all at once. Just concentrate on little sections. That's all you got to do. Concentrate on a section that makes you most comfortable or that you're most interested with. Think about the selling point. And the selling point for this creature is the mouth. There we go. So you can still see the cross-hatching here happening. It's going to look like that at first, but a minimum of 3 passes will at least give you a good start. In my humble opinion, 6 to 10 passes are the way to go. This up here was a combination of black Prismacolor and my 4B graphite, and it totaled maybe 12 to 15 passes. 1, because I'm a perfectionist and I can't stop, but 2, it really enables a really nice coating. I could go over that whole area again and add more stuff. And I will be soon after I show you the gum line, because I need to show you how I did these wrinkles and stuff. Okay, so you see this bare tooth over here. That's what you want. Now, we got pencil strokes going up in one direction, and I'm not done yet. So I'm just going to fill that tooth in, right like this. Keep it light. This is how I'm holding my pencil. There's no real estate left. Let me go down like this. There's no real estate left at the end. My pinky, I'm literally way over here off the sketchbook, like that's my desk. So depending on how long your fingers are, you might not be able to get away with that. Or how big your sketchbooks are. I don't know the size of paper that you guys are using. This is Moleskine. This is their, it's not 8.5 by 11. It's, what is it? It's like 8.9 by 11 point, I don't know. I don't remember the exact measurements. But it's in the same ballpark. There we go. And I could probably go one more direction that I haven't gone yet. I'm going to turn this completely sideways, making sure that I keep the drawing in the middle right over here so it's in focus for you all. And then I'm going to go this way. Now I have to be really careful now, just in case, even though I did take precautions and I'm not smearing my work. My hand is right there, so I got to be sure that I don't go over my drawing. Okay, so I will go over my drawing as in my hand touching it. And I don't want to get any darker with this layer that I'm putting in right now. You see how I'm going outside the lines? Don't ever worry about that. Don't go rushing for your eraser. You didn't mess anything up. All right. Just let the pencil do the talking, not you. You're just there to tell the pencil where to go. Okay, it's going to lay the graphite down. We always think that things that we draw are a mistake, and it's just like, nope. You got to compare it to something that isn't successful, and then you're going to realize that it actually is not a mistake. All right, so once we have this whole area to play with inside here. So gum texture, lip texture, and skin. So let's do all 3 of those. Actually, you know what? We're going to combine 4. I mean, technically I didn't even draw most of this tooth. And this one, I can just walk right over like I did with the previous 2 up here. And I could just put in some darker marks. And look how that brings out the shadow now. Look how realistic that's making it look. it almost looks shiny, but not quite. It's kind of like when you look at your own teeth and you're going, man, it's weird enamel. Like, humans are amazing. Like, just life in general is amazing, especially when we grow teeth and all that stuff. I still don't think it's fair that sharks can continue to lose teeth and grow them back. Once a human loses a tooth, unless we get an implant, it's a goner. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. So now I'm just adding in very light indications of where the gum line could be in the roots, just with lines. So just lines straight down, right, like this. Okay, and there's going to be areas in here where I will have to make darker, like right here. This is a light catcher, so this part of the gum is coming around for this tooth. I don't want to touch anything more in there. I don't want to put any more value on these teeth except maybe over here, because this whole lip on the side, it's casting a shadow on this side of the mouth. Okay, so technically I could just take my pencil and just give like a nice once over. That's all. Just give a nice once over only on those teeth. But I don't want to get too dark. I'm going to have to really pay attention to the values that I'm putting down, because if you go overboard, like I said, especially with the black Prismacolor, you better be confident, because that's not coming up. All right. So now I can just start layering. I can just start layering some different areas. I know that the gum line is going to be a little different because it's going to be less wrinkled. It's more slick. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm happy with that. I don't want to put any more on the gum line, mainly because, there could be saliva on it. The gums are already such a thin type of skin that's on our bodies and in a mammal's bodies. And I want this creature, even though it's made up, I want this to resemble something that we might be familiar with. Instead, I'm just going to indicate very small ridges on top of the gum line of where lumps and maybe some fatty tissues could be sitting. All right, because again, just go to the mirror when you can and just look at your own teeth. Just, pull your lips back with your hands or whatever, and just look at how the skin is attached. It's pretty crazy when you really think about it, and ask yourself, when was the last time you actually had to draw that? Probably never, but we're drawing it today. Okay, so there's areas over here that actually will be in shadow, like this tooth. It's probably going to be in shadow. Don't ever be afraid to put an entire structure in shadow if you know there's going to be a cast shadow. This is what's going to help make it realistic. Cast shadows make or break so many drawings, and even the subtle ones too. Like when I have to account for the top here, look, when I have to account for this top lip up here, casting a shadow on top of the gums up here, that gives the illusion that there's a 3D structure on a 2D plane. That's ultimately the goal. If you want to make a realistic drawing, you have to make it convincing that this thing is living and breathing. All right, so I'm just putting in another layer. There we go. Just walking it over like that. I said walking it over as if I'm personifying this thing walking. It's not walking. There we go. You see how all those tiny little gaps are being filled in? That's so much fun to do. Okay, so now you can start to see this nice area that I'm working with the coating of graphite right here. I haven't put any black Prismacolor in here yet, and you'll also see that this tone of the tooth is similar to the skin. Ultimately, we don't want that. So if the light source up here, so you can see the little arrow right up here, if the light source is coming down in this direction, so I'm going to put another arrow here so you can tell where it is. Here's the light source. I'm just going to put a bunch of arrows in this direction. So the highlight's going to be on this side of the tooth, so the graphite that I put right here is not going to be any darker. I'm going to indicate where a coarse shadow would be on this tooth just by holding my pencil lightly to the side and following the contours of that tooth on the inner part of it. Now, when you first do this, like I was explaining up here on this tooth, it's not going to look good. Just flat out, it's not going to look good, but just Stick with it, stick with the process, and stick with the layering. You're going to start to see a dark streak, and it's going to be contrasting with the rest of the area. Don't worry. Remember what I did up here, where I just slowly started to build up some value, follow the contour of the tooth, and then as you start building it up, you make it fatter on the sides, and then you start to fade it off. You can change direction of your shading. Okay, so you can shade in this direction going up the shadow. All right, like this. Okay, make sure that when you do teeth and you're putting a coarse shadow on the tooth, make sure that that coarse shadow gets skinnier as it goes to the tip of the tooth. You don't want to keep it thick throughout. Because remember, the width of this coarse shadow is dictated by the width of the tooth in the area. So like down here near the gum line, that coarse shadow is going to be bigger because the material of the teeth, it's bigger. It's covering up a bigger surface area. And then it's less surface area as it runs up here. Okay. There we go. You can actually see a coarse shadow on my pencil. Like there's the highlight. I don't know how well you can see it. Yeah, you can't really see it where you guys are, but it's there and I can see it. So now I'm just going to go back over it, layer it again, and some of the crazy streaks are going away, and that's good. Turn my pencil, go in this direction. There's not a lot that I need to shade on that tooth, so I'm not going to worry about doing like 10 or 16 different passes. It's not needed. And also this tooth it's not as important as this one. I just wanted to show what's going on with the mouth with this one. That's why this is more detailed. Okay, but let's just pretend that this whole look, I just outlined this entire side of the face. I'm not drawing that entire side of the face. But what I am doing is I'm at least showing you how to start it. All right, so these are some pretty big loose strokes down here. That's the chin. There we go. It's a big area. This thing has a really big jaw, and if you want to see the side view of the creature, I'm going to put my sketchbook up a little bit. There it is. So that's what it looks like on the side. It's like a gigantic mutated hippo beaver. Okay, but I just made sure that like all the nose is in the right spot. The big incisors, you know, the canines even, if you want to call them that. Okay, yeah, I could put it here. Let's just put a little tongue in there. But that's the outline. I just did that for myself so I know what this thing looked like turned around. It's also a good thing to do for you guys if you're inventing something on the fly. That's a good idea. All right, so in here, I'm just going to put a little darker shading because that tooth is casting a shadow on there. Also, it's going to be pretty dark inside there. Why? Because this whole tooth is casting a shadow on that area. See these black streaks that I'm putting in here? I'm not ruining what I did on my core shadow because I can fade that off again. All right, so I could just go to a different direction, turn my sketchbook slightly, and then go on the edges of it, like so, and just be patient. Now, there's a big difference right here. I could see it, and I don't like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to very lightly work up some values on the side of that, right like this. Just go back and forth until, not necessarily that it disappears, but it's better than it was. There we go. It's almost gone now. See, just that little bit of reworking really goes a long way. Also, I'm going to take my black Prismacolor. I'm going to darken right inside here. And then I'm going to walk that up. I keep saying walking. Why? Okay. I don't know why I'm saying that. If you guys like that, then I'll just keep it in. It's just how I talk. Some people say I sound like Seth Rogen. I promise you I'm not Seth Rogen. But Seth, if you're listening to this, tell me if I sound like you. Okay, once I put some black Prismacolor in there, then I can go back over the black Prismacolor with graphite again. And here's where that texturing really comes in. So see that dark mark? Don't freak out because that's in there. It could be an imperfection that you didn't plan. It's like a happy accident. So let's just put like a little nick in the tooth. Okay, remember those crazy lines that I put in the other ones? Well, it's coming on this tooth too. It's going to be darker right where that core shadow is. See, happy accident turned into something kind of cool. And I don't want to touch that area anymore. The next thing that I do want to work on is this lip area. Now the lip, I mean, we could get super technical and put a core shadow in here because it's basically like taking clay and rolling it up in a snake shape. You're going to get a core shadow across that whole thing. I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm just going to lightly put in some lip wrinkles. You're going to make sure that the wrinkles in the center are straight up and down because we're looking at it from straight on. And as it wraps around this side, you're going to start to see the wrinkles roll. Just that little bit. I mean, look, all I did. I just went across this entire jaw / lip region, and I just put in a couple passes of graphite, okay, enough to where it looks decent and smooth enough. And then any layering or any kind of details that you put on top of that, it's going to look more realistic because it's setting on top of something that exists. It's not on pure white paper. Instead, like if you're going down here in this blank spot and trying to put wrinkles in here, it's not going to look real because there's no cast shadows, there's no value or anything. But here in the lip region, there is value. All right, and then if you want to keep working on this, then you just go on the under part of this lip and just put in some values to where it's a little darker. Because remember, the light source is coming in where these arrows are. So now I can just go to the bottom portion of the lip, maybe somewhere down there where it's going to connect with the skin of the jaw. Okay, or it's really overhanging and there's going to be like a shelf. You just go underneath that shelf, put in some value, and all of a sudden it looks like the lip is being brought forth, like we can see more of it. That's what you want. You want stuff to look 3D. So like all in here and these little imperfections and the teeth roots and all that fun stuff, you could do the same thing over here. I'm doing tiny little ovals very carefully. Remember, I drew the lines in there as grooves to where the teeth roots could be. So now I'm just going back over those areas, maybe in between the teeth or there's some crevices, and try to make it look as realistic as possible, because that's ultimately what I did up here. And then that whole lip is pretty dark under there. This one's being shown the light just because the light's coming down into the gum. So I don't have to worry about that too much. And then the other thing that I want to think about is, like a cast shadow here. It's going to be even darker on this side. So one thing that I'm catching that I didn't realize before is that this core shadow is actually pretty dark. Okay, so I probably didn't want to do it that dark, but let's just go with it. Because remember, the light's over here, so the core shadow is going to be on the opposite side as the darker part. Alright, once I put that in, I could just kind of walk over that core shadow with some graphite, and then here's the fun part. I'm just going to lightly outline where the cast shadow on the lip would be. And there's going to be one on that lip. You want to make sure that that's visible. So there's the cast shadow on the lip. And again, we're not going into gobs and gobs of detail on the cast shadows. We don't need to. Just indicate where it is, and then it's totally fine. The final area that I want to, or the final texture that I want to go over so that you can make your creature's faces believable, is the actual skin. And I want you to pay attention to how I put in the wrinkles, especially under the eyes, how those are thicker, they're baggier. This is a whole different thickness than it would be on the lip, and than it would be on the gums, etc. Think about your own faces. Okay, all the skin near the eyes are typically thinner, more elastic and also more vulnerable to getting cut and scraped, and you know, you can't callus the skin around your eyes. But when it comes to skin around the jaw and the teeth and pretty much anywhere where it's going to be weathered and stuff, it can be a little thicker. So it's funny, like I already put in my signature right there. I'm just going to sketch over my signature. I could just redo it. But anyway, I'm going to keep my pencil sharp the way it is right now. And I'm just going to put some smaller strokes over an area where I'll put some skin. Okay, so I'm already pretty happy with this particular spot. I'm going to show you exactly how I textured it. It's actually not as hard as you may think, or daunting, or annoying even. It's just the beginning stages of skin. You have to layer this up, especially if you want light, smooth looking skin. You cannot push hard. Okay, once I have this, and you can imagine, I mean, this being in black and white, obviously, because it's pencil, but you can imagine what color this creature is. I'm probably imagining some browns, some earth tones. I see this as a desert dwelling creature, something that lives out in the open, probably lives in mud holes similar to a hippo. I don't know. Okay, so once I have this nice coating, you can see the wrinkles that I have up here. Well, I didn't put any extra highlights on there. I just left the blankness of the paper. So I'm just going to think about what this gigantic tooth, you know, it's kind of like the Smilodon, you know, the saber-toothed tiger, except it didn't have bottom teeth. Well, I know it had the tusks, but I don't remember all of those giant ancient cats and what they could have had on the bottom jaw. But I'm just going to indicate, not caring the direction of how I'm drawing these big folds. I'm just going to indicate where the folds are, like this. And then once I do that, I'm going to think about little crevices and little imperfections of where more shadow could exist than other places. So for example, I can make a big cluster here and just fade off the shading within that wrinkle. And the same thing here. Now notice, I'm keeping the direction of the wrinkles pretty consistent. So that means the outermost part is right in this area. If I go below it, that area, below it, that area. Why did I do that? Because I have to imagine what this tooth is growing out of underneath all the skin, the fat, the veins, the muscle, etc. There's a jawbone under there, folks. This is a bony landmark. So that means this tooth keeps going. It keeps going. Look at the mouth. See, look, it keeps going all the way down. This is the bone of it. Okay, and it's going to go, the tooth root's probably going to go all the way back into the jaw. You got this big jaw happening. So I have to show that if I want it believable. So all these wrinkles up here the skin needs to grow over top of that area. Here's where it comes out most. So I'm just going to put a little bit darker of a highlight, or I'm sorry, shadow, darker of a highlight. You can't darken a highlight. Blah. Sometimes I talk so much and fast because I want to say everything at once. I'm not going to do that. There we go. Really, that's all there is to it. Like, I know you're expecting some kind of spectacular technique. I'm like, no. The shading that I did, the foundation that I laid for my drawing, is taking care of most of the problems that I would have I not shaded. And that is, if I would just put wrinkles down, I start putting details in the middle, there's going to be too many specks of the white paper showing through it. Whereas this already makes it look more realistic, because look at your hand, okay? Think about all the different wrinkles in your hand, the pores and your fingernails and the veins or whatever is on your hand, okay? All that exists because the actual skin has a value itself. That stuff's just sitting on top of it. I can go over here again, and I could just shade in a vein if I wanted to. Just put in the cast shadow of a vein. The vein is happening above that. Looks like a cut right now, actually. All right, so I'm just going to go above that part and just leave the tone of the paper, and voila, look at that, folks. There's a vein going across there, and I didn't do anything except just put a cast shadow in and then put an outline to the vein. Now it has a vein going across the jaw. Pretty cool, huh? It's easier said than done, I know, but listen, if you stick to this method, okay, laying down the foundation first for your creature's head, for anything for that matter, you're going to get a really realistic face, and that's something that's going to make your creatures very believable. If you have not done so already, please like and subscribe, comment below, let me know what you're working on. Check the links in the description and join our Discord Creature Design Workshop. I'm also taking early sign-ups. If you want to do a Creature Design Workshop for June, you can check that out, check the links. I also do private mentorships for people that specifically want to learn certain things. I also accept 3D artists too. And it does not matter about your skill level. You do not have to be some amazing artist to take my mentorship or anything. We're all on the same playing field here, especially in the Discord. Everybody's sharing their work, getting feedback. It's really fun. It's bustling. People are joining every day. And I really appreciate, everybody's time and effort they put into making that server awesome. So hope you liked today's lesson. I'll see y'all next time. Later.